Greetings and welcome to our short video on how to make an herbal tincture. The date is December 13th in the year 2020, and this is another Strictly Medicinal Seeds presentation. So a tincture is a hydroalcoholic extract of an herb, and there can be fresh tinctures made of fresh ingredients, fresh herbs, and there can be dry tinctures made of dry ingredients, which is what we're doing today. We're making a dry tincture of Andrographis paniculata, the culmeg or green chiretta, the king of bitters. And this herb is very good for treating Lyme disease. It's also used for treating any kind of liver disease like jaundice. It is used in treating internal issues related to the blood. So it is a anti-spirochete herb that will assist in killing off blood spirochetes. And then since it's a liver stimulant, it helps get rid of that metabolic disease after spirochetes are gone from the system. You need to excrete them. And so this is a number one medicinal herb these days, and really relatively difficult to grow because it is a tropical weed, and here we are in the temperate north. The herb is here in our Strictly Medicinal Seeds labeling, and this is 100 grams. We normally sell it in 50-gram packets, but I didn't want to open up two 50-gram packets, so I made a 100-gram packet. That's going to make it easier for us to demonstrate how to make a tincture. Now, a tincture is useful because it's convenient and it's well dosed. It's easy to dose. So if you start out with a potent medicinal herb like Andrographis, you're going to want to start with low doses, and then that dosage is supported by making the tincture in a consistent manner using a formula that will create the same dilution for every batch that you create. And then when the tincture is taken, and it's very convenient to take tinctures, isn't it? You can just use a little dropper bottle like this. This is actually an herb farm extract of lobelia. You'll excuse me if I don't put any on my tongue. They don't call it pukeweed for nothing. So you can start with very low doses, and you can dilute them in water. You can put the bottle in your pocket, make sure it's well closed first, and carry it around with you and take it whenever necessary. Very convenient, very consistent, very consolidated manner of keeping a lot of different herbs, because you can put 30 or 40 different species in your cabinet or your apothecary. And so tinctures are very commonly used, and I'm going to show you how we go about it. So first you need to grind the herb. When you're making a tincture according to formula, the first thing you need to know is what is the weight of the herb. And in order to know what the weight is, you need to reduce the herb from its coarse ground state down to a fine state, which would be approximately the same as a coarse cornmeal. And then we use these herb rubbing screens. Now, these are screens that are manufactured at Strictly Medicinal Seeds. They're made of Port Orford cedar, which is local to us and really easy to work with. Then also stainless steel screens. So this is the coarse one, and then this is the fine, And the coarse is what you would use, for instance, for grinding rosemary, or for grinding thyme, or any of the other Mediterranean spices, to remove the stems before you use it in your culinary efforts. And then the fine is what you would use to grind it down to more of a powdery consistency. So what I'll do is I'll set these up together, and I'll pour the herb in to the coarse and grind that through by hand. I'll lift it up a little bit like this so you can see. So you can see the herb is nice and green. It was picked at the peak right before the first frost, and that allowed us to collect the seed from it. And here are the little seed pods. Those upright seed pods are characteristic. And you can see how the coarse screen has removed the sticks, and then those are relatively inactive, so we'll leave those out of the sample. So there we go. We've ground through all the soft herb, and all that's left is some very hard carbon here that we don't really need in our tincture. Andrographis paniculata. The active constituent andrographylide is a diterpenoic compound which volatilizes, and I can smell that, and I can taste it in my mouth as the active constituent volatilizes. So 100 grams is our starting weight, and then every tincture has a formula, and the formula for making the Andrographis tincture is 1 to 5, and the 1 relates to the grams of herb, and the 5 relates to the liquid portion. And then there's a secondary formula which is 50-50. That means 50% distilled water and 50% grain alcohol. That's what's known in herbal pharmacy as diluted alcohol. Now we're going to mix the menstruum. So to mix the menstruum, and menstruum is just the herbal talk for the liquid portion. So we need to do a little mathematics. We have got 100 grams of herb, and there's times 5 is 500 milliliters of liquid, of which 250 ml is going to be alcohol, and 250 ml is going to be distilled water. So I have my little Pyrex container here, and I'm going to fill it up to 250 ml. Come to the side and look at how well I did. There we go. And then we need a clean quart jar for mixing. Let's put our alcohol portion in. And now let's go for distilled water. Why to use distilled water? Because distilled water is empty. It has no extras inside of it. And so it will pull the constituents out of the herb more efficiently than wild water, which has a lot of wild ingredients in it. So you could also use pure water from whatever source you trust. You don't have to use distilled water. You put those two together and give it a bit of a shake. Then here's the macerating vessel. First we put the 100 grams of herb in there. And then we add the liquid portion. You always pour the liquid onto the dry herb, not the other way around. How do I know that? Because the process of making an herbal tincture goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. And this is the way that it's always been done, and there are reasons for that. So we just follow tradition. And then we give it a shake. And what we have here is the macerating tincture at this point. You'll see that the liquid has fully covered the herb, which is as it should be. And in actuality, the water aspect will swell the herbal ingredients more than the alcohol aspect will. Alcohol doesn't really create a lot of absorption. So the formula, 50% alcohol and 50% water, it's not a random formula. It comes from my study of the solubility of the andrographis constituents, including the diterpenoic compounds as well as the flavonoids. And so it turns out that a combination of alcohol and water does the best job of dissolving out all the active constituents. Extremely important to label your jar, because right now, you think you'll remember what this is, but after some time, if it gets pushed to the back of the shelf, you may find that you don't know what it is. So we'll put the date, 12, 13, 20, and andrographis, and then the formula, 1 to 5, 50, 50. And then finally, this gets set to a cool and dry and dark spot, and every day it gets shook up in order to create this communion between the solid portions and the liquid portion. And over time, the liquid will pull all of the activity out of the herb. It's a desiccation of the cell structure by strong alcohol. And the tincture will get stronger and stronger. Then after 2-3 weeks of daily shaking, the tincture can be pressed out in a tincture press. After the tincture is pressed out in a tincture press, then it's allowed to settle overnight, then filtered, and then bottled in amber glass and put again in a cool and dark area. All right, so it's been 2 weeks since we made our andrographis tincture, and we've been shaking it daily. Now it's time to press it out. We're going to use the strictly medicinal tincture press. It consists of the H-frame press, the platen, the plunger, the jack, which is engaged by turning the little toggle to the right, and disengaged, allowing things to come down, by turning the toggle to the left. There's also a perforated inner pan. This is all made at our own state-of-the-art steel manufacturing facility. And this is the outer pan with the non-reactive hose and the collection bottle attached. So the inner pan goes into the outer pan. Use unbleached cheesecloth, and I'm going to fold it over till it's 4 layers. It's an inexpensive option for anyone, and it's also very good for if you're pressing oils or some kind of very potent, strong smelling tincture, then you can just compost it afterwards, and it's non-reactive. Here we go. We're going to push this in, and then we're going to introduce our tincture. Our macerating tincture right into the center of it. And then, in the same way that herbalists have been doing for thousands of years, we're going to fold the pressing cloth over on the top a couple of times and move this up into the press. Now when I put it in the press, I want to make sure that it's oriented to the centers. Now before I go up too high, I'm going to put in a pressing block, but I have lost my pressing block, so instead I'm going to use the Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening, and it just fits real nicely, and that raises the platen up so that I don't have to pump as much in order to divest the mark of all of its liquid. Now while I'm pressing, I'm looking down inside to make sure that the pressing bag is not riding up around the edge of the plunger, because that's the way you get a stuck press. And that's just not happening this time, so I'm not going to have to repack or change anything. Instead, I'm just going to keep pumping and keep pumping, and it's a yielding load, which means that as I apply pressure, the liquid is extruded and comes down through this hose and into the collection jar. So just like anything, a delicate touch makes sense. And so you press it up and then you wait for a minute, and then the load yields, the tincture comes out, and you press it up again. That's the delicate art of pressing. Then after some time, you can actually go and make yourself a cup of tea or something and allow it to drain, because you want to get out every last drop of the tincture. After some time, then you determine that it's finished, and you can drop down the platen by turning the little toggle to the left. Remove the Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening. That allows you to slide out your pan, and then physically drain it to make sure that any leftover tincture that's down in the bottom of the pan comes down into your collection spot. And then do a switcheroo so that you make sure that the tincture is really properly ensconced in a good collection bottle. Put your label back on it again. And here we can pull this out, and it shows you the cheesecloth with the press cake of the herb, which is now divested of activity. The activity has gone into the liquid of the tincture. And this is called the marc, M-A-R-C. Peace.